All right, let's just get right into it. We're talking about someone who didn't just play music, he basically rewired its entire DNA. This is a guy who built this incredible utopia of sound, only to then record its spectacular collapse. This is the story of Sly Stone.
So I want you to picture this. It's 3:30 in the morning, you're at Woodstock, the crowd is just soaked in mud, totally exhausted, and then suddenly they're absolutely electrified by this band that looks and sounds like nothing else on earth. Like the future just landed on stage. And right there in the middle of it all, Sly Stone, the charismatic leader of a whole new movement.
But then, fast forward just 2 years. That's it, 2 years. And that same man? He's a total recluse. He's locked away, recording all by himself in his bedroom, just layering tape after tape until the sound literally starts to fall apart. And out of that, he creates this masterpiece of paranoia and disillusionment. Yeah, the dream was definitely over.
So the question is, how on earth does that happen? How does one guy's personal journey, from this peak of ecstatic unity all the way down to solitary darkness, end up becoming the blueprint for basically everything? For funk, for hip-hop, for neo-soul? That's the story we're going to unpack right now.
You know, whenever you read about Sly Stone's legacy, one word comes up again and again: architect. He was a visionary who just demolished the walls between soul, rock, and pop, and maybe even more importantly, he put black and white musicians, men and women, on the exact same stage as equals, which was radical. So, to really get this whole architect thing, we've got to go back to the very beginning, to the foundation. Sylvester Stewart. His whole sound was cooked up in two places: the gospel music of the church and the incredible cultural melting pot of Vallejo, California. I mean, get this, by the time he was 7, he was already recording gospel records with his brother and sisters. The music wasn't just something he did, it was in his blood.
Long before he was a superstar, Sly was a disruptor. A real troublemaker, in the best way. As a radio DJ in San Francisco, he just flat out refused to play by the segregated rules of the airwaves. He'd mix the Beatles and the Rolling Stones right into his soul music sets. And at the same time, he's over at Autumn Records producing actual hit records, totally mastering the studio craft that would, define his entire career.
And the band he put together, man, the band itself was a political statement. This was the late 60s, an era of intense race riots, and Sly and the Family Stone wasn't just integrated. It was like a living, breathing manifesto for what America could be. You had men and women, black and white, not just sharing a stage, but as completely essential, powerful, instrumental equals. It was unheard of.
And right inside this already revolutionary group, there was another revolution going on. It all came down to the bassist, Larry Graham. He basically invented a whole new way to play what we now call slapping and popping. He'd strike the string with his thumb, that's your kick drum, and then pop it with his finger, that's your snare. All of a sudden, the bass wasn't just in the background anymore, it was a rhythm machine. And bam, just like that, the entire foundation of funk music was born.
So with this completely new sound and this incredibly powerful message of unity, the band's rise to the top wasn't just fast, it was seismic. It was an earthquake. After their big breakthrough hit, Dance to the Music, they pretty much became the living, breathing embodiment of all that 1960s optimism. I mean, just look at this timeline for 1969. It's insane. It's an absolutely imperial run. They dropped the classic album Stand. They completely defined the entire Woodstock Festival with one performance. And they're just cranking out hit after #1 hit. For that 1 year, you could easily argue they were the biggest and most important band on the entire planet.
And the numbers don't lie. The sales totally match the hype. Their album, Stand, sold over 3 million copies, which was huge back then. And it makes sense because its message of tolerance and empowerment in songs like Everyday People, it just perfectly captured that hopeful spirit of the time.
This right here, this quote just nails their power. At Woodstock, when they did that call in response of Higher, that wasn't just a song anymore. It was proof. It was living proof that their whole vision of a unified, integrated world could actually work. It turned 500,000 people into one single ecstatic voice in the dead of night. Incredible.
But then it all changed. That bright optimism of the 60s started to curdle, to go sour. And Sly Stone found himself right in the middle of the storm. That beautiful utopia he had built, it was about to come crashing down.
The switch from Stand to the next album is honestly one of the most jarring pivots in music history. It's night and day. You go from the bright, sunny optimism of Stand to the muddy, murky paranoia of there's a riot going on. What happened? Well, Sly was getting squeezed from all sides. He had groups like the Black Panthers pressuring him to fire his white band members. At the same time, he was sinking deeper and deeper into drug addiction. So he just retreated, locked himself in his home studio, and the sound of that solitude, that became the album.
And a huge part of this new sound came from this little guy, the Maestro Rhythm King. Now, back then, most musicians thought this thing was basically a toy, a glorified metronome for home organ players. But Sly Stone, he heard something totally different in it. He heard a cold, mechanical heartbeat, the perfect pulse for his new, disillusioned funk. He even gave it a nickname, the Funk Box.
And here's the really crucial part. You know that #1 hit, Family Affair? That slightly stiff, detached, almost ghostly beat? That's not a person. That's the funk box. It was one of the first times a drum machine was the star of the rhythm section on a massive pop hit. It created this haunting, kind of distant sound that nobody, and I mean nobody, had ever heard on the radio before. Now, at the time, a lot of critics were just confused. They didn't get the gloomy, dejected mood. But history has been very, very kind to Riot. Today, we see it as a total masterpiece. Its raw, murky, rhythmically dense sound became the direct blueprint for so much that came later, for darker funk, for the whole sample-based world of hip-hop, and yeah, for pretty much the entire neo-soul movement.
And his influence absolutely did not stop there. The crazy thing is, even as Sly's own star started to fade in the years that followed, the things he created, the innovations he pioneered, they became permanently hardwired into the DNA of modern music.
I mean, listen to this story. The jazz legend Miles Davis, we're talking one of the greatest musical minds of the entire 20th century, he heard the song In Time from Sly's 1973 album Fresh, and he became obsessed. So obsessed that he supposedly made his own band listen to it on repeat for 30 minutes straight, just to figure it out. That's the kind of next-level genius we are dealing with here.
And this list just shows you how far and wide that impact went. You've got Prince, who basically modeled his whole multi-instrumentalist integrated band thing on Sly. You've got George Clinton and P-Funk, who took that psychedelic soul and ran with it. You've got hip-hop giants like Public Enemy sampling his heavy beats. And modern artists like D'Angelo, who directly updated that dark, raw sound from Riot. They're all working from the house that Sly built.
So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? It's the Sly Stone blueprint. It's all these things. The integrated, mixed-gendered band becoming a real thing. The invention of slap bass that changed everything. The drum machine becoming a legit instrument in pop music. The idea of the producer as the auteur, the true artist. And just blowing up the boundaries between funk, soul, rock, and pop. That is his legacy.
And all of this leaves us with one last big question. How do we look back on the story of Sly Stone? Is it just a tragic cautionary tale about what fame and addiction can do to a genius? Or was that intense, fiery collapse into darkness actually the necessary price he had to pay? The price for tearing down the old world of music so he could single-handedly create the sound of the future.